Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you, because we have a little something in the business that we call spoilers.
What's up, guys? I'm Hunter, and here we're going to do a breakdown / discussion and review and analysis of the spoilers for chapter 264 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as the Decisive Battle in the Uninhabited Demon-Infested Shinjuku, part 36. 36, y'all, for 36. There are 52 weeks in a year. And this has not been straight Shinjuku. That is great, but 36 chapters deep. We are here. And ladies and gentlemen, I got some transmolations. Are they the most accurate? I have no idea, but I got them. I got a general understanding of the chapter now. I got new opinions on things I had weird opinions on earlier in the short spoiler discussion, and while we do have time, that's the blessing of these longer spoiler discussions, I don't want to waste too much more time. So let's hop right into it. Heading me. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, there are certain things in this life that we call allegations. And Gege's been quite a victim of numerous allegations of all different types of varieties, backgrounds, origins, with varying levels of truth, varying levels of lie. But regardless, the allegations have always been there, ladies and gentlemen. And there are certain type of allegations that Gege gets, and I don't think this chapter helps with them. Though, admittedly, I do think it makes more logical sense than what I was initially giving it, based on the translations I got. But, of course, let me stop being vague. Let's actually hop into the chapter itself. So, we open up, and we do get to see that Hana is about to hit the... and go absolutely crazy. And the thing is, the one thing I'll give this chapter, even though it's going to amount to literally nothing, other than removing 2 characters from the battle, I do love the look on Sukuna's face here. The sheer look of abstract, like, this is the most flat-out horrified. I think, like, this is essentially the equivalent. Y'all remember back in 235 when Sukuna was forced to look at the Unlimited Hollow he was about to have to eat and he hit in Megumi's body? That's the exact same. Look at that eye, bro. Look at the scale of that thing. He's like, bro, that thing about to pop out his dome piece. Because I think he really thought this was it. Like, and think about it from Sukuna's perspective, right? I don't even blame him for having this I don't even blame him for having this reaction. Because think about it from his perspective. The last 2 times he dealt with this in the modern day, the first time he was cooking so badly that Gege in the redraws for the volume said, hold on, I made him look a little bit too undignified. Let me save this man's soul and redraw him to make him look a little bit cooler. But he was still being cooked, even in the redraws. And then the last time he got hit by this, he was also deep fried. And in both of those scenarios, he was in a much, and I mean much, physically and spiritually better state. And, like, both are extremely necessary for Sukuna's case. So the fact that he hits he doesn't frown, but that is the most close thing to flat-out frowning that we've seen from Sukuna since the last time he actually just straight up went that. But that was a frown of, like, I don't like the way I'm feeling right now. This is a frown. This is a pseudo flat face, frown face of, like, oh no, I'm really about to get cooked right now. And the thing that I do like is that Yuji isn't even smiling. He's like, oh, we're doing this? Wait, we're doing this? like, I feel like even for a second there, Yuji was like, wait a minute. Aren't I finger? If I finger, do I burn too? Because both of those characters, in one way or another, are not what they originally were. Sukuna is an incarnated sorcerer from 1,000 years past in a borrowed vessel. And Yuji nibbling all the siblings. And is also a Sukuna finger. And so much more. So both of them looked at this thing that exists, that they both know exists to purify evil creatures and wipe out incarnate things. And I know both of them in their heart of hearts were like, we are about to die. I know the terror is present in both of them. The only person who doesn't look abstractly terrified is Todo, because he's like, I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude who's doing it right now. I'll just cook real quick. I'm gonna keep on cooking. Todo's chilling. But everyone, both the king and the prince of curses, looking so like, or, that's beautiful. I find that hilarious. But with that being the case, we do get to see that while this hype is fantastic, it looks juicy, it looks wonderful, Jacob's Ladder does start Jacob's Laddering. However, before it actually does, At least seemingly. I'm not entirely sure. Once again, if this is meant to be them being consumed by the heavenly light initially, it's kind of hard to tell because of the planar background versus we see a more like active. Even then, not really. I guess not. I'm not sure. Essentially, the question I'm asking: were they already being hit by Jacob's Ladder in this first panel, sort of immediately continuing off the end of 263, where we had already seen Jacob's Ladder hit, or was it about to hit? Because depending on that. If Sukuna, like, saw Jacob's Ladder activate, started to see it coming down, and then punched the ground, more relativistic Sukuna feats, you know what I'm talking about? But that aside, that's... regardless, it is kind of sad, because you do see Sukuna start to burn. You see him start to burn, right? He punches the rocks begin to tractor beam up. And once again, that's one of the few things I couldn't find, and this is where I'm going to reach out to y'all. Is it a I'll probably say it in the main review, but even then, I think the reason I didn't see translations for it is because I don't think no one even knows. I don't think anyone mentioned it. I mean, like, there's the little panel later of Sukuna noticing that Yuji hopped up the same debris he did. Is this just a force feat? Like, is this just Sukuna punching the ground so hard the debris go up, and then, like, just because of how fast the characters are, they're able to leap up before gravity affects the rocks from how hard he punched the ground? Or does Jacob's Ladder actually just have a tractor beam effect? I don't know. And it's kind of, like, don't get me wrong, Sukuna really didn't need to do this, because, as we'll see, he's going to play hopscotch on top of the rocks. I saw some people say he punched the ground in order to shield himself from the heavenly light, and you may be able to argue that at first, but specifically, look where he jumps. He very specifically does not jump, like, under the rocks and then slides under the rocks. He specifically leaps off the top of the rocks. He did this so he could get platforms. But, like, we know Sukuna could hop off air if he really felt like it. So... this was kind of just like a low-key flex, but if Jacob's Ladder has a tractor beam effect, that is kind of like... it's a blessing and a curse. But it's a blessing and a curse, because, like, I guess... I'm not sure what, like, the purity level of the light is. Like, for example, if you were to shine a light into very deep darkness, eventually the light and the photons are going to start fading the further out you get. So maybe that's the case. Maybe the reason there's a tractor beam effect is because the closer and closer you actually get to Hana in the heavenly light, or Angel in the original incarnation, the closer and closer you get to the heavenly light, the purer it is, the more concentrated it is, the higher the erasure effect will be. But considering Sukuna will feel basically absolutely no damage from this, it's highly likely that's not even the case. But still, the tractor beam effect is a little bit weird. I feel like... I'm trying to remember. In 213, 212, I think maybe 213. I forget if it had one there. And admittedly, I can't blame Yuta's domain because it was a sure hit, meaning it immediately popped on top of him. And two, like, unless it was going to scoop up some tiny bits of concrete, I'm not exactly sure what it would scoop up. But interesting. A further elaboration on Jacob's Ladder is neat. Though, once again, I'll admit, it kind of... on an effectiveness level, Jacob's Ladder drops off a decent bit. Once again, it's because we don't see it used on a technique. Notably, every single time we've seen Jacob's Ladder being used, it's being used on Sukuna, who, one, is way too powerful for the characters that are using it against them, and two, isn't activating a curse technique at the same time. In the Yuta scenario, it's implied that he was going to anyway. Like, remember when he was going to unclasp his hands and attempt to do the world-cutting slash anyway, just because he was like, man, forget about it, I'll just do it. So, I'm not sure if Angel's Jacob's Ladder, or any of their techniques, considering Jacob's Ladder, their maximum, is the only thing we've seen. It's unknown whether or not Jacob's Ladder actually acts as a binary. Like, if you are pure Curse Spirit, boom. Or if you are using a curse technique, boom, it gets shut off. Because, notably, none of the casts in this chapter use their curse techniques while Jacob's Ladder is active. Unless you want to make an assumption about something later, that a certain someone uses their curse technique here. But even then, it looks like Hana very specifically escapes from the halo of light. So once again, anyone inside the light, we don't get to see them use a technique or anything like that. So I'm not sure if it's a binary. The reason I'm so concerned about being a binary or not is because that's kind of determines where Hana / Angel scale overall and how effective they are just in general. Like in a versus matchup, you always, at least a versus matchup that has versus equalization, you always want a character who can turn off other characters' abilities. And almost every popular major series you hear in Crossverse to some degree has them. Similarly, Sins has them. Obviously, I was about to say Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer, in fact, is one of the few that doesn't have them. Technically, I guess you could say Muzan has some stuff. But obviously, JJK has them on a couple different levels. MHA has it. Heck, even Dragon Ball has characters who just say no to your ability. So, the necessity of this mainly comes from how effective would it be against other characters. Is this an instant one tap on someone like Big Raga, or will Big Raga slowly vaporize? Because he's a technique, shouldn't he immediately turn on? I don't know. Someone like Mahito, could they tank this? Maybe? Possibly? Or will they be immediately vaporized since they're pure cursed spirit? I don't know. That's the issue with it being used on Sukuna, and with what gets explained about Hana and her output based on what has happened to her. Because we find out, as Sukuna's like, oh, I smell a little bit like bacon, but other than that, I'm kind of chilling. He punches the ground and rises up. He just leaps up. He legitimately climbs Jacob's ladder, which is hilarious because I swear, like, the entire fandom 2 weeks ago was making infinite jokes about how this just couldn't be a thing. Like, I don't know. I made jokes. I know some of my other fellow content creators made jokes. I saw it in my comments. Like everybody made the joke about him genuinely climbing Jacob's ladder. And technically, he isn't. He's very specifically using rocks to do it. When we know he could air hop, we literally see him just straight air hop to gain height all the way back in the Rozu fight. But he's probably a little bit EP, so I get it. He doesn't do that. But the reason that Hana's Jacob's ladder isn't so effective is because of, I believe, twofold. Number one, and I'd say, I'm not sure which one is bigger, but probably a big one. I'll say the second one is bigger. The first one, Hana's just weaker. Like, in general, than Sukuna, and also just physically. Remember, she lost her entire arm. Like, despite only having, I believe, like, her forearm ripped off, whenever we see Hana, it's like they had to, like, sever off the rest of her shoulder. And now, of course, we don't know how much bodily potency affects your general cursed energy potency, but considering that's just less body, that likely means you're able to store less cursed energy, meaning you're likely able to output less cursed energy. We know that damage lowers your output in general, so if you have a permanent bit of damage on you, a whole chunk of your body missing, especially a fourth of you, well, your arm technically isn't a fourth of you, it's like, I think it's like I forget what the actual, like, percentage of it, like a fifth. Let's just say it's a fifth of you. Losing a whole fifth of you drastically lowers your output to a degree. We see this when previous characters like Sukuna lose their output whenever they take so much damage. Gojo taking damage and doing brain damage to himself lowered his output drastically and needed to up it back up, and so on and so forth. We haven't seen many permanently damaged characters actually fight that often. The only other example of a character who took permanent lethal damage and still engaged in combat, quote unquote, is technically Inumaki in terms of like large scale. Because technically Yuji has permanent damage, his scars and stuff like that, but he still has all of his limbs. Hana does not, and thusly her output is lower. The other major thing that's causing an output difference, an overall effectiveness difference, is the lack of concentration. Because the thing about Jacob's Ladder, despite it being a maximum technique, it's very broad. Which worked at first when Hana was stronger and Sukuna was weaker, and also freshly tied to the body, all the way back in the 210s. But now that Hana's weaker, and the fact that the Jacob's Ladder isn't concentrated like it was in Yuda's domain, all that energy is being spread out. So, like, it's kind of, how do I explain this? So, if you, me, and the homie, just all three of us, were chilling, and someone aimed a water hose at us, say they sprayed it full force, a straight up water hose, and we all put our hands in, somewhat. Like, one hand's here, another hand's here. All three of us together are being hit by the water hose. But can any of us say we were all hit by the full extent of the water hose? Not necessarily. That's what's happening here. The output spread because everyone got caught in it. Todo got caught in it, Yuji got caught in it, Sukuna got caught in it. So Jacob's Ladder is currently trying to just, hey, you evil? Are you sure? Sure you want to don't perish? Come on now, you can perish now. And it's knocking on that door, but since it's knocking on heaven's door, the knock isn't too effective. The call's coming from inside the house, and Sukuna's just not affected that much, because one, he's much more stabilized in his body, despite his body destabilization, which sounds crazy, I know, but it somewhat makes sense. And two, since it's being effective on multiple people, not being totally concentrated on Sukuna, yeah, he's able to just walk through it. It's essentially, like, I think the water hose analogy is the best, because I try to use light as an analogy, but, like, I'm currently covered in light. And someone could be sitting right next to me and be covered in this exact same amount of light. But I guess to use light as a comparison, look at this, me being entirely engulfed in light for the most part. And look at this. Technically, the light's still on me. But, like, notice how half of me is now unilluminated. Someone else could be fully illuminated, but that's kind of the thing. There are multiple people using the light source right now, and thusly it's not as concentrated. Same thing that's happening with Hana. So, does the explanation make sense? Yes. Do I understand why narratively it kind of had to go like this? Yes. Because here's the thing. Hana's Jacob's Ladder was set up to be kind of... I forget if I made a discussion video way back when, but I thought I've always had about Hana, and I think I've mentioned it in previous videos. They're kind of too perfect, and it's why they feel plot devicey, and it's why they feel like I feel like Gege had to pop him into the plot and immediately pull him out of the plot, and pop him into the plot and immediately pull him out of the plot. Because if Jacob's Ladder was half as good, we'll say 75%, because I'd say it's at least half as good, but half as good as it was advertised, then Sukuna wouldn't have even made it past the first instance of it. He would have been immediately atomized and removed. Like, Megumi would have hurled Yuji's finger, and then boom, they would have been done. So you kind of have to nerf it. And then in Yuta's hands, once again, it kind of falls back into the jurisdiction of, okay, well, we're kind of trying to save Megumi. We don't know what would happen if Jacob's Ladder were just used to erase Sukuna. And then on top of that, here and now, we kind of have to nerf Angel again. That's the thing. It sucks. Because I understand on a narrative and character level, you can't have Angel or her technique be that good. Because then it'll just break the narrative. Just like I still see a lot of people being mixed on Takaba's inclusion and Kenjaku's character conclusion, even though technically Yuta got the final blow. The final battle of Kenjaku was Yuta catching an assist from Big Takaba. A lot of people feel very, very iffy about that. Same thing with Sukuna. Sure, would it make perfect sense, based on how Jacob's Ladder was first initially explained, for Sukuna to just get... Absolutely. But that wouldn't be the most narratively satisfying thing, nor would it be the most character satisfying thing. Of course, there's still an entire plot line about Sukuna being the Fallen. And apparently having to do something with a rebellion against, like, whatever Angel views as a god. There's that whole plot, like, they were the disgraced one, the Fallen, whatever you want to call them. Sukuna has that entire plot line to himself that is entirely unexplored. That is heavily dealt to do with Angel. There is clearly premeditated beef on Angel's part. But even still, Angel just ain't that important. Kind of like how Kashimo was never going to defeat Sukuna, Angel's never going to defeat Sukuna. So I find myself it's hard for me to get mad at something that I know wouldn't happen. It's why even in the spoiler discussion from 2 weeks ago, you heard me say it's not going to work. I didn't think he was going to legit climb Jacob's Ladder, but I knew it wasn't going to work because it simply wouldn't. If anything, it would just be a setup that would lead to Yuji, which kind of ended up being right, because he's steaming. He's just not steaming that much. You know, it's a light simmer. So, overall, am I mad at this? Not necessarily. I think I'm disappointed, but I'm disappointed in Hana and her character usage, even though that's the hard thing. I'm disappointed in Hana and her character usage and the potency of her abilities. But since I understand why Hana's positioned the way she is as a character, where she's positioned in the narrative, and how broken her abilities could be if they were actually met at face value, I get why they aren't. And I think I'd be more disappointed or more mad if this is just how Sukuna lost. If we open up this chapter, Jacob's Ladder hit, off screen, we see Megumi. That's crying. That's crying. But we see Megumi on the ground hurling up fingers. Like, yeah, obviously, I'd be more disappointed in that. So, I'm fine with it. And I think I prefer it simply because I'm a big Yuji v Sukuna guy. And for that, I'll give Hana a pass. And plus, I'll admit, the explanation does make sense. It does generally make sense based on how we know Jujutsu techniques work so far, and Sukuna's general level of potency, and that's the thing, it makes sense inverse, narratively, character-wise, all around. I'll let it slide. But with that being the case, Sukuna goes, and he starts charging up the ladder. And one thing I'll give Angel / Hana, they knew not to play any games. They immediately started it. Like there was no, well, admittedly, Angel pops out the cheek to be like, go, he's right, I can sense it. Like, she does get told to dip, but the fact that she knew to dip at all, very, very good stuff. She's not falling for the okie doke twice, and of course that doesn't look like Megumi, but still, never know. I've seen a lot of people are very into true form Sukuna. Like, very, very into true form Sukuna. Somebody don't scare me. But with that being the case, Sukuna, like, in one of the most hilarious panels ever, he gets up behind her, still being soaked in her light as she dips out her own pillar. She dips out of her own technique. And Sukuna's like, The hammer of villainy is you. He goes to immediately slobbering out the taste out of her. And I think, once again, I didn't get 2 translations. I got translations of the major stuff that I didn't understand. But I think he legit is planning to pay her back for the initial Jacob's Ladder. Like that first, like you can see the reference here. And I think that's actually the redraw. I'll have to tell when it's, I think that is the redraw from Volume 15. I don't think that's the original. But he literally plans to slobber knock her as a get back. Once again, if there's one thing I wish we could have gotten from JJK before we get to the end, and who knows, once again, I don't know, maybe it'll go on longer and we'll actually get this. And who knows, maybe the end of this chapter is setting up for what I want. But I really wish we got to see why Angel felt the way they did about Sukuna and how Sukuna felt in the past and overall their opinions on certain sorcerers. Because I'm assuming Angel would be a sorcerer to remember, right? Like, their ability is really, really unique, really, really powerful in concept, and also really, really dangerous to someone like Sukuna. Especially someone like Sukuna who's planning on reincarnating. So I'm assuming Sukuna did recognize them and was like, you. So I wish we could have a little bit more context and see maybe Angel's past incarnation, anything like that. It would have been neat, but of course, pacing, and it ain't that important. With that being the case, Sukuna goes in for his lick back. He went in for the lick back. So this is the thing here, right? I think Todo just straight jumped. That was one thing I was looking for the most in the translations. I was trying to figure out if Todo jumped or if he swapped with something. But considering there was nothing in front of Hana, and he literally has this, like, action mark here where he just vanishes, that man Todo leapt. Like, and once again, we don't know how tall or how high in the sky Sukuna and Hana were. But still, for that boy to leap, I know he's got superhuman strength and all, but that boy was quick with it. Like, realize Todo managed to clear the distance between him, Hana, and Sukuna before Sukuna could A, finish swinging his fist, and B, Hana could get any farther. So Todo, he low-key a speed demon. And speaking of a demon, that man, I mean, he doesn't eat it. But a Sukuna Black Flash, which someone pointed out, I missed one. I believe it is the 1-2 against Maki, the 1 against Choso, the 1 against LaRue, 1 and 2 against Todo, and 1 against Yuji, all the way back in Yuji's initial Crash Out chapter. Sukuna's hit 7. Some of them Black Flashes. So he's been going bonkers. He's been getting it back up. And of course, his soul's in a rough spot. But still, as we'll see from this Black Flash, he's doing very, very well. So the fact that Todo eats this, I mean, eats it in the sense that he doesn't immediately atomize, very, very good stuff. That's why the man's a bogey beast. Because we see he blocks it for Hana. And one thing I do like, this is actually kind of an inversion of what had saved Hana the last time. If you'll remember, when Hana initially got dropped by Sukuna, one, she was actually, ow! Actually, it don't taste that good. She got that by Sukuna, but then Sukuna had just threw her. And then it was Nita who ran and, well, not Nita. What's the guy's name? Sugar Man. He can make sure, I forget, it's the guy from Yuji School. I want to say Nita, but I don't think I think that's the brother or something. But it was that guy with the beanie who, like, ran and caught her. But instead of going in after the fact reacting, Todo gets in proactively and tanks the hit for Hana. Crosses his remaining arm and his good arm in order to block it for Hana. I've seen people complain, and I get it at first. I've seen people complain, oh, so Hana's output was lowered drastically by her loss of an arm, but Todo's wasn't. In fact, he only got stronger after losing an arm. I think it's a difference in properties, y'all. Like, Boogie Woogie is a technique that relies on the oscillations and motions made by an individual. You can't exactly raise the output on something like Boogie Woogie. And by proxy, as long as you can do the initial starting condition at any sort of decent speed, then yeah, it makes sense that Boogie Woogie would stay exactly the same. Meanwhile, something like Jacob's Ladder would weaken depending on the circumstance. So, I don't feel too valid about that criticism. But there's a certain criticism that I have, bro. Because if Todo really came in, and clutched it up, he thought Hana was the trump card. You saw him at the end of 263. He was big cheesing. He's like, yeah, I got you now, Big Kuda. I got you now. Prepare for these heavenly back shots. Ooh, I'm about to make you spread it, Big Kuda. If he literally swapped in Hana, only for Hana to do legitimately nothing other than give Sukuna a slight suntan, and then Todo had to get got for it, because look, Sukuna lands the Black Flash with a big old cheesing girl on his face, and, wait, where is it? we see Sukuna admittedly give up like Todo. Sukuna says something that reaches to the core of my soul as a Todo fan, as a Todo taster, a Todo tickler, a Todo top tier tickler. I don't know, but as a Todo fan, bro, the fact that the King of Curses, undeniably, right now, undeniably, the strongest character, sorcerer, creature, whatever you want to call him in the entire verse, after seeing Todo do what Todo did, after what Todo's done, he says, "This man is a Jujutsu sorcerer. Truly and absolutely, you Todo Aoi are a Jujutsu sorcerer." He hasn't said that to anybody. Like, he didn't say it to Gojo. He didn't say it to Kashimo. He mentioned that they were strong. He said he would never forget Gojo. He gave Kashimo a whole life lesson. He even said Jogo was strong. But to acknowledge Todo in all of his madness, all of his mania, all of his abilities, all born of said madness and mania and dark thoughts and malice being turned into something positive and something creative that not even Sukuna could expect, not even Sukuna could break, and to have Ryomen Sukuna, a man who found he had nothing to prove for over 1,000 years, until he met the face and then proceeded to black flash the face of the first heavenly restriction user with zero curse energy that he had met. For him to look at Todo Aoi, the madman, the mad king, the big old beast of the Kyoto school, and say, "You are truly a Jujutsu sorcerer." My heart, oh my god, my heart, oh, straight in it. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud. I can't adopt Todo as a son, he's literally taller. But, like, still, that's my boy. However, the reason I'm a little concerned is because Todo, he's bleeding already from the impact. Remember, he took a Black Flash before, which only destroyed his Viper Slide, but then he just took another one. But of course, since Sukuna's getting his output back, there was a mean little Slobberknocker. Like, he literally gets slammed through the top of a building and then laid out here. We do not see Todo nor Angel for the rest of this chapter. Now, could that impact have actually killed him? Not impact. Kids, drink your water. Kids, drink your water. Don't end up like Uncle Pencil and get cramps all the time. I get cramps in the weirdest places. Fun fact: I get cramps in my jaw. If I yawn too hard without having moved my jaw recently, which I know you're like, Pencil Man, all you do is move your jaw. What do you mean? Man, I know. But if I yawn too hard, my jaw will lock up. And my shoulders have locked up. My thighs have locked up. My calves have locked up. Everything. I've had foot cramps. Yo, I'm old, but I ain't that old. So, like, the fact I'm getting them, I know where I inherited them from, though. I know exactly where they came from my family line. And, hey, I'll take the trade-off, because I got other good things from the person who I inherited this from. But still, man. But with that being the case, I'm not sure. Because the thing is, right, I could see Gege doing it, because, once again, technically Hana and Todo aren't that important. And it wouldn't be the first time Gege was like, well, let's just add more bodies. Let's just add more bodies. Because once again, remember, in the grand scheme of things, the only things that Sukuna's gotten body-wise, Gojo, Higuruma, Kashimo. Am I missing someone? Gojo, Higuruma, Kashimo. Choso's the big one. I know Choso's a big one for a lot of the family, but narratively speaking, he's not the biggest. Or, like, narrative weight speaking. And who am I guess Yorozu as well. But I'm trying to think of, like, specifically Shinjuku Showdown stuff. I think that's it. I think it's like 4 down. So adding both Angel and Todo to the roster, once again, it would make... And it's really hard to say, right? At this point, especially considering where we are by the end of this chapter. A question I do want to ask y'all. Do you think Sukuna's done enough? Do you think he's done enough to earn his title? Do you think he's done enough to have a massive narrative impact? Do you think he's done enough as a hypothetical, if not just flat out the final antagonist? A lot of people, especially at the end of this chapter, are talking like the merger's done. As in, it's not actually complete, but like we're not going to see it. And honestly, I can't blame them for thinking that just based on how, you know, bleak the scenario looks for a certain King of Curses who holds the merger. But with that being the case, I don't know. If you think he hasn't done enough, do you think Todo and Hana are enough to fill that quota? I feel like Hana isn't, but I know the loss of Todo would be such a... It would... Because here's the thing, a lot of us were already convinced Todo was not, if not necessarily lost, we thought he was done. But for him to come back and just perish for Hana of all characters, I know the Todo fan base would go crazy. Heck, I'm the Todo fan base. I'm going crazy right now. But with that being the case, I'm not sure. Part of me is like, let's do it. The other part of me is like, but my son, even though he's not my son, because he's literally like 10 meters tall. But with it being the case, Todo and Hana are removed from the fight. Speaking of being removed from the fight, Goda, Yuta Kotsu, the fusion of Satoru Gojo's body and Yuta Kotsu's brain, do not make an appearance this chapter. And at least from what I saw in the translations, they don't even get a mention this chapter. The only Gojo mention we get is later when in regards to domains, but once again, that's not even specifically a Gojo reference from the time skip or anything like that. So Goda's in a weird position. Once again, once the chapter comes out officially, I'm going to finally drop my Kenny Copium video, which has been sitting in the back pocket for a while now. But with that being the case, Kenny Copium, well, no, not Kenny Copium aside, Kenny Copium Premium does seem strange. Time does pass in this chapter, and as we're going to see, it's going to look like there's going to be a long amount of time passing once we get to the end point of this chapter, seemingly enough. So the real question is, what's happening? Yuta? What's happening? What's going on? What's going on, buddy? Pal? Amigo? Friend? Let me know, because it seems a little suspicious that he don't show up. And with that being the case, we still don't know how much time is left on his watch. Could be 10 seconds. Could be 3 minutes. We don't know. I think the only thing we know is it was less than 3 minutes since he showed up to the battlefield. At least at the time of last chapter. Because, well, I don't think the domain clash went for 3 minutes. But still, interesting. Todo and Hana are removed from the fight, and Goda goes unmentioned. Wonder what that could mean. But, with it being the case, we see that now that Todo and Hana are removed from the fight, Sukuna's like, oh, well, shoot. The kid's still down. The cursed brat in the monster's body. Just knocked out the one Jujutsu sorcerer who was actually here. I think I still have that Kusagabe guy sliced in half. The Zenin girl hasn't shown up yet. Just knocked out that angel. Who's left? I still gotta get that teleporter boy, but what's left for me to do? And then we see Yuji Todori be like, I'm left for you to do, Unc, or Dad, and or both, and proceeds to leap out of Jacob's ladder, burning alive. Though, admittedly, this once again raises the question, how effective would this be in somebody else's hands? Like, would Yuji... This shows that Yuji is a burn victim. Like, bro can definitely be cooked. A lot of people theorize that. A lot of people... gave Yuta the matchup still, specifically because he had Jacob's ladder, and Yuji decided to expose himself to so many external factors. So, hypothetically, I would not be shocked if Yuji could just be hardline erased, but he does leap out of Jacob's ladder steaming off the stone. And we see Sukuna be like, oh, I should have just air hopped. He literally chased me. I'm sick and tired of you, nephew. And we see that Yuji, after getting in, decides to give Sukuna a meal. Calm little knuckle sandwich. And the craziest thing about this? Yuji punches Sukuna, presumably in midair. He hits punching stance midair, BT dubs. So maybe he does have airwalk ability, because he hits Sukuna with a standing BOOM midair, and then we see that bro, before Sukuna can even recoil from the slobber knock, somehow dragged himself further down with gravity, gripped onto both of Sukuna's ankles, and proceeded to body slam broski through an entire building. For what? What did he do to you? I know everything he did. But still, darn G. That's on some Sukuna versus Jogo type stuff right there. Like, straight slamming him through the building? He didn't straight knock him through one story. He said, no, we're going down. It's going down for the... I'm sorry. But, like, moving devious may just be the slightest bit of an understatement. But speaking of moving devious, we see Sukuna immediately recovers, so he's like, well, this brat don't notice. I am my 7th black flag. I feel the same type of way. I'm about to go crazy on him. Because we see Sukuna immediately note that Yuji is coming. And he coming hard. Because Yuji immediately runs in, goes to tag Sukuna. Presumably, I assume he was trying to tag Sukuna here, but Sukuna backflips away from Yuji, activating his cleave again. And one thing I do want to note, Yuji, I think this is the first time we've seen what looks like a curved cleave. Like, notably, all of Sukuna's cuts, whenever he uses cleave or dismantle, they're, like, very pattern-oriented. They're typically always in, like, squares or X's or crosses or something like that. But Yuji, it seems like his cleave has some bend into it. And we see something here. I forget. Let me check the translation right now. Hold on. I'm taking a quick look. I've been hearing mixed things. And it doesn't look like, at least not in the translations, I can't seem to find anything that seems to give a definitive. I'm not sure Okay, yeah, I can't find it. But I'm not sure if this is meant to be dismantle or if this is meant to be Sukuna just... I've seen both. I've seen people say that this is just Sukuna aiming strikes at Yuji, but just based on how it's paneled and based on how these strikes look, I want to say it's dismantle. But at the same time, I can see why people think it's punches, because one, Yuji's never been able to dodge dismantle before, and this is a Sukuna who's only getting stronger. And two, it could simply be that, like, they've put the focus on his hand and he just could be going... like trying to poke Yuji's other eye out, and then we see Sukuna going immediately for a punch. Why would he go in for a punch if he could just dismantle? But then again, we know Sukuna's also faster than his dismantles, so it's kind of like... It's 50-50. Honestly, I'd be more fine if Yuji just dodged dismantles. I'm hey, you're looking at a number... I've been a Yuji investor since day one. Since day one, I may have had some Gojo stocks, but trust me, my Yuji stocks are paying off well. I invested my money real good. I'll admit, I didn't go as deep as the Yuji Todoro domain investors. And I didn't go as deep as some of them Yuji Todoro domain investors. Some of y'all went deep and got real rich off of being real correct. I admit, I ain't go that deep. But you've been hearing me for the past couple, not weeks, not months, but darn near a year, I believe Yuji Todoro's going to have that last blow on Sukuna, I swear. So you know I am confident in my boy Yuji Todoro. So if he were to hypothetically slide into a top 5, hypothetically take the spot of a top 3, because he's able to dodge point-blank dismantles, you know your boy wouldn't be mad. But regardless, we do get to see that Sukuna immediately goes with a veiny punch right to Yuji's face. And notably, I mean, Yuji gets knocked back, and he's knocked back by a fresh Sukuna arm, no less. But, like, in spite of that, he's kind of vibing, like low-key, but essentially Sukuna got his RCT output back. Finally, after so long, after so many punches, after being on the verge of losing everything, he finally got his RCT output back. This is, I believe in the translation I saw, it's a mix of just enough time passing. Like, remember, Gojo fought, for us, like, nearly a year ago, but also even in universe probably at this point at least half an hour. There were some breaks in between the constant combat, and two, from the numerous black flashes. Like I said, he hit 7, I'm pretty sure. I think Yuji's at 8 or 9, but yeah, Sukuna hit 7 of them bad boys. And remember, Gojo restored his output after 4, so nearly doubling it, and especially with his proficiency with Jujutsu and his understanding of how RCT and all the Jujutsu factors work, it makes sense that Sukuna would finally be able to restore himself to a decent point where his RCT is back to not just max, but really quick, because he regrew those arms really well. Though admittedly, as you can see earlier on in the chapter, they weren't too stubby. Like, after a certain point, they were basically back. Like, look at this right here. You can almost see his arm tats. Or his wrist tats here. So, like, clearly he was on the verge of coming back anyway. But still, now he has full hands again. That's a little bit dangerous, a little bit devious. But, with that being the case, Yuji may have got a little bit too confident with the grasshopper fight. Because he thought he could really handle 4 hands versus 2 hands. And he kind of gets 4-hand mandled. Sukuna's like, hey, you trying to punch me? Oh, really? Oh, you're trying to punch me again? Oh, really? Hey, now what if I just punched you? And proceeds to grab Yuji's wrists, like the petulant child that he is, and tug him straight into a kidney punch. Not a kidney punch. I have no idea where he punches Yuji. But he hits Yuji hard enough. And then, I think this is a wombo combo. I'm not sure if this is Yuji getting hit with a fist into a knee, or a fist into another fist, but regardless, it's brutal as Yuji gets knocked back. However, once again, Yuji's right now is locked in. That boy is tweaking. He has not spoken a word in literal months at this point. So he, okay, maybe not literal months, but still, he really is locked in as he proceeds to take the fact that he got his hands on the ground to immediately and slice up the entire area. Sukuna's like, wait, he realizes only I can hop off air, right? Like, he looks genuinely confused here. He's like, wait, what was we doing, bucko? And we see that Yuji, once again, he's consistently going for it. Notably, this does kind of soft confirm that he just has no idea how to do dismantle. Not even his soul variation of it. He does need contact. So essentially, his soul dismantle is just a soul cleave. Not fully, as in the sense it doesn't automatically just a soul durability or anything, or a soul connection durability, but the fact that he's consistently going in for these instead of just aiming, like if he could aim dismantles of the soul splitting type or the soul variation type, I do think he would. He wouldn't keep trying to go for these close range grabs if he had the option to. Honestly, if we're being completely real, I know he was in the middle of free fall, but buddy, pal, if you want him gone that badly, why didn't you, I don't know, maybe use cleave on him here? While you're slamming him through the building? Like, I think that would have rendered his soul apart just fine. But with it being the case, and speaking of soul rending, we see that Sukuna's like, oh, well, shoot. Wow, this boy may be breaking my foot. I'm good. I'm big chiller right now. I am vibing. Because Sukuna knows, yeah, sure, you could destabilize your boy. You very easily could. You may just be that guy, fella. But you ain't that guy like me, for real, for real. Because ultimately, he goes with the ultimate fast player rhetoric. Or not even rhetoric, the fast player facts. Hey, I ain't gotta worry about HP, what your attacks do, or what effects they have if you can't hit me. And ultimately, Yuji cannot hit him with regular strikes. Sukuna, once again, is showing that he's still entire leagues above Yuji in terms of speed and general stats. So now he's going to toy with Yuji. He's about to have a little bit of fun. This is father-son time. And of course, in his mind, this is one of the last battles he'll get before, the merger, which is just going to be a conglomeration of a whole bunch of people. So, with that being the case, he's looking a little bit happy. And we see that that may have been a mistake. Because while Sukuna's happy and smiling and cheesing, Yuji Todori's like, I ain't really want to do this to you, mainly because it takes so much out of me. But I think you earned it, Big Kuna. And we get a flashback. A flashback to Jogo on Jogo. We're not Jogo on Jogo. Now get that image out of here. Of Gojo on Jogo. Don't put that image. Oh, I got it in my head. Ew. Oh. So wait, who's on top? I mean, Jogo does have the multiple holes. The volcano had infinity? How? Let me not. But with that being the case, we get the flashback to domain expansions. Very specifically, the section where Gojo is explaining the properties of a domain and one of the biggest, baddest, and best perks. Oh yeah, guess what? Well, it doesn't necessarily need to not have a sure hit. Because since you're building your technique anyway, you might as well. And we see, while Gojo reacts to the non-sure hit, in universe, in modern times, Yuji Itadori activates his domain expansion, his Ryoki Tenkai. And couple things. Number one, apparently he developed this with help from Kusakabe. All the practice he did with Kusakabe on barrier techniques allowed him to get the basic fundamentals for what a domain would actually be like. 2, he has multiple techniques. He has blood manipulation, and he has Shrine. What both of those mean all depends on what Yuji Todori decides to do with the domain and how effective it is, if it's effective at all. Number 3, I've seen a debate on whether or not Yuji is actually using middle fingers or not. I think he has to, once again, correct me if I'm tweaking. These are the knuckles, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4 knuckles. And unlike Sonic, he don't chuckle. He rather flexes his muscles. He's hard as nails. It ain't hard to tell. I forget the rest of that song. I haven't heard that song in years. But still, he's double flipping. He's flying the twin flags right now. I the way some of y'all were in the comment section of the spoiler review or the shorter spoiler review, I was like, ain't no way Yuji actually. But I don't know. I'm looking back, and I think people are getting this confused for a third finger. But y'all, when you hold your hands like this, it goes 1 knuckle, 2 knuckle. I said red knuckle, blue knuckle. It goes 1 knuckle, 2 knuckle, or 1 finger, 2 finger, red finger, blue finger. So we have the 1, we have the 2, we have the 3, and we have the 4. That's just the finger that's buried underneath. So yeah, Yuji hits the double razor. And with that being the case, so this really depends. This is definitely, once again, it happens every couple weeks whenever Yuji's up. It's opened up the discourse, the debate. Who are we kicking out of top 5? Because we always know Gojo and Sukuna at the top. Oh wow, how crazy! What crazy next level take are we gonna? Yeah, but the main contenders we have for top 3 in the verse, it's the CT Kashimo users who typically just say domain diff, which I understand. The Yuta munchers, the Yuta yuckers, and the Kenny creamers. I'm personally a Kenny creamer. But I also understand and respect the Yuta Yuckers, as I'm also one of them. And I also understand the Kashimo Creamers, because I'm also one of them. But the thing that's been holding Yuji back, for some people out of top 5, for shockingly enough, a decent amount of people out of top 10, which I think is kind of ridiculous, and for 1% of people, top 15. The fact that people didn't have Yuji in the top 15 was crazy to me. But all that being said, the one thing that was holding him back was his domain. and what it does and what it do. And of course, we don't actually get to figure out what it does and what it do in this chapter. That's presumably what all next chapter is going to be about. Going through Yuji's domain, if we even get to see it. Because notably, another issue I do have slight with this chapter, even though I do think we're probably going to get further explanation on it, and it's a problem I mentioned before with Gege and their writing style. Yeah, we get this crazy hype moment. A moment that people have realistically been waiting for since the concept of domain expansions were introduced, only back in what, like chapter 16? We're now in chapter 264? And you mean to tell me we don't get to see it? Because, notably, once Yuji activates it, with these hands that still have yet to get an explanation, and these gauntlets that have yet to get an explanation, what are these, Yuji? Please, tell me, Yuji. But with that being the case, beyond those, Sukuna... Huh? What? Notably, I'm not sure. Once again, I didn't see it in the translations why Sukuna didn't activate Melon Shrine. I'm assuming it's a mix of being caught off guard, and he may have still been in CT burnout. Once again, if you think those earlier, like, white lines were just Broski going, that's fine. But with it being the case, it makes sense to do it now. Because, like, why wouldn't? Where did my brain go? Where did my brain... Well, see, this is what happens when I record. But, like, I was literally just on an entire train of thought. But ultimately, Sukuna ends up in the airport. The reason I say this is a possible bad sign, or not the airport. He ends up in a train station, very particularly. This is confirmed to be a train station. I thought it was a factory in the shorter review, but no, it's very particularly a train station. Sukuna pops open awake, and is very specifically back in the Yuji Kuna vessel. Now, remember what Yuji's sure hit is. It's that soul dismantle. It's the thing that Sukuna was afraid of. The reason Yuji even opened his domain the first time, or for this reason, is to catch Sukuna off guard, and to very specifically split him up from Megami. So, in that case, we don't know what's happening in the real world versus what's happening in this barrier world. Presumably, this is a closed barrier. I don't think this is an open barrier domain, like what Sukuna can manifest, or what Kenjaku can manifest. With that being the case, Sukuna's trapped inside, but what does that mean? Can he just break out of some sort? Why is he back to being fully healed? What's he doing sitting on this bench? There's so many different questions. A big question is this whole interaction right here. Ultimately, Yuji just says, hey, let's go. Sukuna, come on now. Which, once again, has a lot of people believing this may ultimately be their equivalent to the airport, what Gojo had. And if there's one thing I'll admit, it would kind of make... It depends. I'm not sure if this is a train station above ground or below ground, but if it was a below ground train station for my American people out there, the subway, ain't that crazy? Gojo, the one born of the heavens, he who had not fallen, rose up and went beyond on a beautiful airplane far, far away. The fallen and the boy incarnated with him, ultimately, they fell to nothing but the south. Fell to nothing but shores of aggravation and no longer separation, all that. That is a little bit, that's what we like to call poetic. But another thing that could be interesting is, well, not even could be interesting, is the general lack of Megami. Now, of course, we don't actually know how most of our cast and crew was planning to restore Megami. Presumably something along the lines of, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Okay, he's awake. Boom! And then smack him hard enough so he gets back to reality. But the question is, where's his body? Because once again, this is Yuji Kuna, not Meguna. Not even Meguna in the sense of his true form, Sukuna, in Megami's body. No, it seems like his body's just gone. And it's replaced with this facsimile. And I've seen a lot of people wondering, once again, why is he looking a lot like Itadori now, down to the same school uniform? I'm once again going to chalk it up exclusively to Sukuna having his soul essentially being cleaved apart from Megami's and partially fused back, if not fully fused back, right into Yuji. And of course, Sukuna reflects the vessel that he's currently in, and we see Yuji's wearing the same outfit in this domain. And also, I ultimately think this is what Sukuna's affected soul looks like. When you strip it all down away and he's not trying to force his originally incarnated form, this is Sukuna. Remember, he spent pretty much all of his modern era, except for, what, the last month or so, looking like this. Even if he didn't have the tattoos and the hair up all the time. So, ultimately, I think we're in a real rough spot. I wouldn't be shocked if this was just the end, if Yuji and Sukuna reluctantly get on a train together and go off, because ultimately they ended up offing each other in the final moment. Or something along those lines. Or the domain expansion is a double, sure, execute, sure, delete. Like, there's so many different things that could come of this that I'm excited to see it. And I'm intrigued to see how Sukuna is going to react. Notably right now, like I mentioned earlier, how he had the He now definitely does have a frown on his face as he's considering going and spending any time with Yuji. But still, this is an interesting scenario to be put in. What the domain means, what it does, how it's going to affect Sukuna, how it's going to affect Yuji, why they're fully healed, why Sukuna's in a different body, while Yuji's in a different body. Seemingly enough, because he doesn't have the claw mark, anything. So much is raised by this chapter that I can tell it's going to be an exciting, exciting future. So overall, if you made it all the way to the end of the spoiler discussion, please do me a favor and leave the King's Fool. The King's Fool. Because Sukuna is a bit of a fool of a king to let it get this far. But please leave the King's Fool in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come on the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1, get them $1 month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. So now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reaction to this very chapter, ad free variations of all my videos, and if you come into our Patreon, into our member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi description down below where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 20 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful, worthy day. This would be that guy with a pencil writing off.
I'd like to thank you to our $3 members, Zena, Greyhound, Astro, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, G Prosper, Red Wolf 4765, and Paris Arnold. I'd like to leave another big ol' thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $7 members, Autumn Mornings Lazo, Fine, and That Guy. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give big, hefty, juicy thank yous to our $10 patrons, Panda Goat, Michael Williamson, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give the biggest, juiciest, meatiest, sloppiest, and heftiest thank you of them all to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.